uncomfortable conversations. The times we're living in, there's so much going on, be it family, be it a country, be it a community. There's so much going on. And as things happen, people get hurt, words are uttered, and even events are instigated, whether violent, whatever it is, hearts are broken, people are displaced. Sometimes if it's in a family, there's a lot of abuse, whether it's domestic, whichever way we look at it. And then we have information. And sadly, information becomes distorted. We always say that whoever holds information holds the power. If the government holds the information, they have the power. They can also distort the history. And the same thing we see even within most nations, whether there are nations known for colonial atrocities. You notice even the history that is given to those who are born of those nations is actually distorted from what's really on the ground. They can be given a hero effect, but those who are victims of the atrocities is a whole different conversation. And whoever holds information holds the power. Whoever holds information holds the history. And how information is relayed, the environment, the timing matters a lot. If it's relayed in a time of emotional intensity, if it's released in a time where there's no logic or facts, it's more of she said, he said, opinions or theories, it becomes very dangerous because eventually to be able to validate, examine, and get clarifications of these informations becomes very hard. We see this even within families, two spouses fighting. What ends up happening, they end up putting children to take sides. One spouse or the other spouse will utter this. One may be saying the truth, the other may be saying the lie, or purely lies, or purely truth. The children now are forced with time to do their own little investigation and be able to get who's telling the truth. That comes at a heavy price because now they have to dig histories they shouldn't even be involved in. They have to watch how particular relatives behave to a particular parent. They have to look at the friends the parent keeps and try and find out who can they trust and ask particular type of information. And this then puts the children in very compromising situation because again, depending on the link between who they reached out to, the person can also give distorted information. For example, let's say is their mom who is claimed to have been harmed by the father. The thing is, the children may go to, let's say, the aunt on the mother's end, and the aunt, either being biased, can give wrong information, and the child will take that as the gospel truth, thinking I have information. But the sad reality is a lot of things have to be unearthed so that the child in this case scenario can be able to find out the truth. And when they are adults or in, let's say, in their 30s or 40s or 50s, they come to get information through a whole different person. Sadly, some even come to get the true information when they've buried, let's say, their father, and they realize the father was never their abuser, they were once told. Or in a different case, the mother. Maybe the father said the mother was A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And when the kids get older, they come and realize, no, my mom was none of these things that were uttered. But sadly, at that time, they said words to their parents they can never take back. And at that time is ashes to ashes, dust to dust, back to the ground. And now they live with the reality. How many times are we witnessing the battle between baby mamas and baby daddies, or single mom and single dads, and the children get caught up in this war where they don't even know what truth is. And sadly, with social media, people don't know where the gray line is, and so some information is out there that the child at the time was very young. Let's say they're teens or anything, as they grow older, they get some of this information through an unlike source. For example, imagine you're in a public transportation and you realize a video of your mom or your dad is saying about something that's very, very personal, and you have a stranger who's listening in and even discussing it in a public transport. How would you feel? So it becomes quite sad. I remember a time back, it was on a cyber. Those were the days before we used to have smartphones. We used to go to the cyber cafe And I remember this time, I think it was Facebook, that was the common one. We still had others, the To Goes, we had Twitter, but we had MySpace and all, because I remember I used to go to the cyber. But I remember this was time for Facebook, and this is the time you were using names. So someone will call themselves a celebrity's name added to their name, or even a celebrity's name and then a caption. So you think, oh, you've met, someone who's a celeb, only to realize it's just a local person, when you go to the mutual area. I remember a time I went to the cyber and I was, going in, learning, community status, all that stuff, Facebook back in the day. And then as I'm leaving, I see my face in someone's profile picture. I was actually a cyber, I was actually not paying, I was leaving. And then I tapped the guy's shoulder and I asked him, what are you doing with my photo as your profile? And why are you using my name? It didn't have my name, it just took a photo. Now, I remember every time when I would use any public, I would make sure there's none of my information is within access in terms of a picture, or even I will literally clear the history. So the other option would have been, maybe they've seen my post somewhere, downloaded the photo, and now they used this as scamming. So I caught the guy, and the guy was freezing, and I told him, what are you doing with my photo? He froze, and I told him, scrap it immediately. He did. And I told the cyber person, what's my photo doing there? He couldn't explain. So the person was, told off, and I think he even chased out of that area. And remember, what was I doing? I'd come, check if there was any inboxes, back in the day when so Facebook was Facebook, and we were still trying to figure out the social media world. And then I'm leaving, and then I see that. Now, in this case scenario, I done nothing wrong. Neither was any video information. Now switch it up to someone who has very sensitive information about your life, and you have someone viewing it, commenting it, and saying, and they're just next to you. How many people are we witnessing right now who have come to see their families, information of their families having left this world? I can't use some words because, but whether they were offed, or they're off themselves, or they were in an accident and they are gone. How many have received it from social media, from people they didn't expect? Someone will say, look at this link. How many parents have seen their children engage in X-rated, or let's say adult kind of content type, and someone says, see this link, only to see your daughter or your son doing stuff, and you're thinking, but they told me they went for fellowship. So this is how people fellowship nowadays. You understand? And then the trauma that's left, and how families have been split apart. The thing is, we live in times whereby we have things, and there are so many, that's just one among many, where we have conversations that are very uncomfortable. But if we don't deal with them within a good timeline, they keep growing. If you don't warn someone about something, or tell someone about something they're doing wrong, what happens? They presume this is normal behavior. If you don't scold a child and tell them, hey, that is wrong, you don't do that. If you don't, they'll assume, this is fun, I can keep doing it. Are we not witnessing little children forced to be fashion nova, fashion kids? And look at a child who's a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, putting on adult kind of clothing, and the parents or whoever's the guardian is clapping. But what do you do to that little child? You're exposing them to PDF type of characters. And also, even the child is exposed to so much. The child just wants to play with toys, not to be seen out there by creeps and all that. And even if that was the point for the child to be seen, don't you think just a child wants to be a child? Play toys, watch Cocomelon, or whatever other melon is meloning out in the melon world. The thing is, wherever we are, in whatever we do, we will have uncomfortable conversations. If we choose to ignore them, this is the sad reality. Someone else will give information about the same thing, but sadly it's distorted. So once information is there, give it a good timeline. When the emotions are okay, when the environment is better, let the right information come out. That's why even in countries where they're experiencing civil war or general war, it's always important to be able to separate between mainstream media information and what the local is saying, and even what the local is saying, to make sure it's not biased reporting. At the end of the day, we are all hurting one way or another. But the most painful part is when information is so distorted that the reality disappears. And whoever controls the information controls the history. So let's begin.